It's always the same. We were on a large steel vessel, like a pirate ship, but not right. It was metal, and many of the proportions were wrong. There were a few of us there, but by the end of it, they were all gone and I was alone. I remember something happened, and we were all torn from our main ship and thrown into the water, which was unrealistically rough in hindsight. I felt we were on an open sea, but we were being rapidly pulled towards a waterfall of some sort. There was a large impediment just before the drop, a large stone or hunk of metal, or whatever it was, and the large, flimsy mechanical raft we clung to got caught on. We smiled and laughed at our luck briefly, and everything seemed fine. The main ship we were on just moments ago seemed to be just a memory now. No one was concerned in salvaging it. Maybe, according to dream logic, we just all knew it was lost. I remember remarking on how perfectly our life raft wedged onto this mound. As we were coming towards it, I was honestly worried that I was going to end up being harpooned on it, or it was going to end up just impaling on one of us. There were a bunch of stray pikes and loose pieces sticking out from it out of the water. But as we got closer, some pieces made contact with our raft, and we just slid on, as if it was supposed to happen. I don't know. This is when everything gets a little bit blurry. A few of us are on the raft, and we're all in relatively good spirits. I mean, something forced us from the ship, but we could still see it standing over the churning water, over the hills of ocean, away from us. I remember it being incredibly sunny, too. The world was white in contrast to the copper bits of metal material we were clinging to. Looking away from the water was blinding, and likewise you couldn't see anything because of the reflection. We assumed that our other companions were either reclaiming the ship without us, or simply on rafts like ours in the surrounding waters. I would never find out. The water inexplicably started brewing more furiously. The raft I was on shifted, and I was thrown away from the boulder and away from my friends. They screamed for me, but I was taken under before I could audibly react. I do not know how far I fell, but I felt I was already in the tumble cycle of the waterfall. It wouldn't let up. After tons of water pushed me down deep enough, it finally let go of me and I floated towards the surface. The water down there was dark, nothing like the blinding sun from minutes ago. My head pounded with pressure of the water, but surprisingly I don't remember finding it difficult to maintain my breathing. I might have even just been breathing naturally. It was a dream. I don't remember. It was a strange place, and it was just a strange time. I float to the surface and I tread water. This required almost no exertion on my part. The water was light, and I just felt lighter. It pushed me towards the open sea, and I again saw the beautiful sunshine and felt as if I was on a beach. No, I was on some grounding. The water calmed where it was, and although I could not see through the mere inches of it, I found some sort of sandbar in the middle of this ocean. I turned around to see where I had come from, to see what sort of mountainside I had fallen from, where the boulder holding my ship's raft was, and I just couldn't believe it. I stood, standing in the middle of the sea on this platform of unknown origin, staring at what the tempest held my ship. It was not a storm. We were in this minefield of pulsing hills of water, mountains of water. I had not fallen from a waterfall. No, I rolled off the edge of one of these currents. I almost could not make it concrete, yet I was staring at it with my own eyes. For miles and miles away from this submerged platform, I saw rolling hills of water, all stationary in location, but forever churning and bubbling, stories high. Behind me, behind my ankle-deep perch, the sea appeared to be normal. Waves would come and go, but they all seemed to die before they reached my location. Certainly not crossing into this mountain range of these pulsing hills. I stood there. I don't remember how long I stood there staring at this mess. But I brushed the hair from my eyes, and for the first time I actually recalled being drenched. And I suddenly saw my ship out there, behind the front line of these bulbous hills. I had about a 15 space of run and shallow water, and this gap artificially gave me the courage I needed to swim the quarter or so mile back into my ship. Never mind the walls of water that would drown me were I to touch them. but my ship had managed to get down all these hills. I desperately wanted to return, so I dove into the open water. My platform had given me a false sense of security. The water was just as rough as when I had entered freefall. As soon as I dove into the water, I was jerked violently to the right, and my ship was taken away from my vision, veiled behind these hills. That was the last time I saw her, the unyielding Endeavor. Many times I was dragged underwater and shot out, disorientated. Even though my consciousness and vision was severely lacking, I found keeping my breathing, incredibly easy. Struggling was futile, but I wasn't drowning. I closed my eyes, and I just let the tide take me. It was dark when I finally opened my eyes. The stars were huge in the sky. It was mostly black, but little strands of purple and the lighter night sky on the horizon were ever present. I had been drifting for hours. I could feel it. My head felt heavy from the cradle of wet that I had been floating in, but I was not encumbered by the sensation of water in my ear or any such infection. I was just drowsy. Suddenly something large moved past me, and I darted up and splashed around, gracefully I'm sure, and I looked around. It was dark, and a fleet metal ship out of some fantasy world with a large cotton sail shot past me. I shouted for it. Its sole navigator looked at me and ignored my call. Then another ship passed, and another. A handful of these small, swift vessels were going around and away from me, as if I was in some minor harbor somewhere, on some moon somewhere. I shouted like a madman until one ship finally slowed for me. A young man around my age hung over the edge and pulled me into his boat. It was long and narrow, and seemed to be typically reserved as a one-man fishing boat. Without a word, he pointed ahead, and I saw where we were going. In the middle of the dark ocean was a congregation of ships of all sizes, crowded around one another, centralized near a floating dock arbitrarily placed in the middle of nowhere. We dock at one end of this pier, and he helps me get out of his boat. A small mongoose, small brown creature, darts out from behind some crates sitting at the end of the pier, and he stands up on his hind legs and blinks at us. Then he runs away towards the group of people. Just on the other side of the dock, in the water, are dozens of these people sitting in waterborne chairs and furniture, obviously taking advantage of a platform similar to the one I experienced hours ago. Paper lanterns are strung all over the scene, as well as floating candles and little handheld sources of light. They all illuminate the area, which seems to be a warm, welcoming party of sorts. My rescuer is gone, and I am left at the dock. These strangers are all talking in hushed whispers about something. I am alone on the wooden fixture staring at the crowd. The mongoose is chirping at my feet, and if it could smile, I'm sure it would right now. And then he dives into the water with a splash. I always wake up immediately after. What were the lights, Doctor? What kind of festival was happening in the middle of the ocean? I cannot remember talking to anyone after the fact. It's all gone. What? Just a result of the medication? Alright, well, I remember the little furry creature sitting on my chest, looking right into my face. Its fur was all slicked back from the salt water, and then blackness. I wake up in here, stuck in a routine. Life here is okay. We are on some naval base. It's mild outside. I'm guessing Pacific Northwest. You all won't tell us the name, but I suppose it's for our own sake. The doctors come and go, and they always allow me to have this little audio recorder. This little thing, I do love it. They let me drone on, explaining my dreams. When I first remember getting acclimated here, how I'm feeling, what I had for lunch. It makes me feel like I'm actually working on something, And before the accident, I wanted to work on something, a book or some other. I guess the incident has left me a little bit hazy. The bloody fuck was the project I was working on before I was thrown off the ship. Before we were capsized. I remember bubbling hills and cresting waves. I remember bubbles steaming. Steaming. I oh, why can't I remember the name of my ship? I'll have to ask the doctor about it. I I don't know what brought this on. We were on the Atlas? No, that went down months before our mission. Wait, our mission? Yes, our mission. Wait, what were we working on, Doctor? You guys would probably never believe this. This guy Randy down in the cafeteria. He's another patient here. Get a load of this. He told us that we've been here for decades. Can you believe that? This pretty fucking face. This? In my 50s? Please. Randy's a nut. He's obviously one of those guys that Dr. Murray was talking about, those lost causes, the twitchers. Yeah, that's Randy. Poor fucking nutter. Well, this morning, Sammy and I were having breakfast. She's wonderful, Doc. You'd really like her. Is she under your care? Well, it turns out she's a Sox fan. I mean, I can't really stomach that. I don't know what the hell Pop would say if, he found out that I was sweet on a Sox fan, but hell, if he saw her face, Christ. Well, Sammy says, let's go for a walk, and of course I oblige. I ain't no schmuck, Doc. Sammy and I, we walk around the island for a bit, and we're sitting for a while. I know we're not supposed to, but my hand's on hers, and we're looking out at the water. Well, she's staring at the ocean, and I'm staring at her eyes. Doctor, I couldn't tell whether they're green, or brown, or hazel, but hell, they were there. And she's looking at the water, and she asked me, she says, Robert, do you think we'll ever be back at sea? And I look at her, realize we're holding hands, and the words catch in my throat. Not looking up, I shrug and tell her, I realize, I don't even know why we're here, Sammy. Morning, Doctor. I slept terribly last night. Yes, the dreams. Again. Yep, the same one. Falling off of the water mountains. My crewmates are there, my friends. But this time I can't see their faces. We're all clinging to the raft and the water surges, and I'm in the air for a moment. It's all dark. The sunshine, the screaming, the churning waves, it's all swallowed. I rode the fall and crashed, again, like always, and I'm underwater and it's dark. But it's not frightening. I always feel, I guess I always felt really warm down there, like unnaturally warm. It was always definitely colder when I broke the surface. Well, I come to, I break the surface, and this time I can't see my ship. But now there's one of our big ships out there. A big freaking carrier just looming there. I see someone up on deck, he's looking out at me, and he turns to yell at someone else to get help. And then I blink, and I'm here. I'm here on the island. I'm in my bed. I learned that Randy's gone, sir. Am I supposed to call you sir? Ma'am? I don't know. They never really told me what to do in this situation. We're in the fold here, sir. Or at least I think. This may sound silly, but we're servicemen, right? Of course, but I know we've been doing this for a while now, but I mean, you know what kind of situation we're in. What branch are we in? Where are we in? I see our emblem everywhere, Doctor, but it's... I don't remember what got us here. I remember my dreams, and that's it. What happened before my dream, Doc? What happened before the water mountains? What happened before we set? Doctor, I was holding out on you for a few weeks now. I know it's been a while since we had one of our little chats, but you said we were doing so well. I didn't want to ruin the streak. I guess everyone is now, better, huh? Well, people are getting better, right? The mess hall is almost empty these days. Are people really, progressing that well? If so, that's wonderful. They're going home to their families and whatnot. But I wanted to tell you, the little furry creature, the one that kept me company after the incident, he's been visiting me. He's not waterlogged anymore. He's not drenched or, skittering about. He just reminds me a lot of those little mongoose buggers that we played with in the Indies a few summers ago. I'm allowed to keep him, right? It's nice to have the little brat around. I named him Charlie, ma'am. He likes ice cream and keeps spiders out of my room. What? Well, now that you ask that, I don't know where he tasted ice cream before. Well, regardless, our security doesn't seem to mind him. He scampers around their feet, and they just don't even care. I guess that's their job, though. They just give me a stupid look when I try to pick the little fucker up. As far as I know, he's the only pet on campus. On what? Oh, I'm sorry. He's the only pet on facility grounds. Yeah, technicalities. They don't talk about him? Hello, Doctor. These days, it's just me, Sammy, and Randy at lunch. He's back again. I mean, there are others, but they're those twitchers, Doc. I mean, I would love to help them, but I'm just a mechanic, ma'am. I suppose you guys are helping them, right? I hope so. Everyone else is. The herd is being culled, so to speak. Randy already seems better, but he does have the occasional episode. I also realized I recognized one of the jerky ones. He's a bit fat. He sits by himself in the corner of the hall. I'd recognize him anywhere, though, and in my mind, he's always wearing this stupid little paper cap. Was he maybe a cook on our ship? It makes sense. Well, Sammy tried to start a conversation with him today, and he's just sort of drooled. Your team really needs to look into what's going on with Randy, ma'am. He means well, but he keeps talking about the children of the vents, and I don't know, some real science fiction shit. Like the fucking Reds colonizing Mars or something. He said we were going to be returning soon, and he actually had a seizure right there on the lawn. The guards came over, and they carried him away, and his arms were clenching, and his chest was pounding, and it was all just really scary. I didn't want to see him choke or something, but he was already gone by the time Sammy came over. Sammy asked me where I was from today, Doctor. I couldn't remember. I was going to ask her where she was from, but then I felt like I knew that we had this conversation before. All I could remember was that she liked baseball or knitting or I couldn't remember. I just remembered socks or something. Sammy liked socks? So, we were sitting near the shoreline today, Sammy and I. We were watching some ships on the far end of the harbor, and we were talking about what we were going to do once we got out of the service. I told her that I'd probably open a small dock and repair off the mainland. I do love it here, Doc. I know you guys try to keep it from us, but I realize we're in this general vicinity of Deptford County. And it's beautiful. It's always been. It has a bit of everything. The forest, waterways, city life, the boonies, all of it. I ask her, She just sat there staring at her hands. I asked her what she was looking at, and she was pawing at her fingertips like a schizo. It was really sad to see. I saw a tear roll down her cheek, and she looks up at me, ready to go hysteric, ready to, lay it on me about something. But the guards brought Randy over, and they just planted him between us. He didn't really say anything, he just stared out at the water. At this point, he had been gone for a few days. I guess they just wanted him back with his friends. He always gravitated towards us, so I guess they had only assumed. Sammy asked Randy, "How are you, Randy? How are they treating you? Do you feel better?" Randy giggled. "Man, with all due respect, I must ask you, when are we leaving? We've been here for a while now, Doctor. I know. No, I know. I know it was necessary, but I'm pretty sure it's been at least a year. Sammy swears it was almost 2. I mean, what have you been doing with Randy and all the others for weeks at a time? Where are they? Where are all of them? There's only a dozen or so of us left, Doctor." "What? Okay. You stay within the month?" "Perfect." Dr. Harris or Dr. Murray, whoever's listening to this fucking record, where were we born? They brought Randy back again today, Doctor. He was quiet, not jittering like usual. Sammy and I were sitting at our table near the water, and Randy rubs his hands together. He said, "Robert, where's your pet Charlie?" I told him that I'd not seen him for a while, and then he cut me off. "For a few days, Robert, since they took me?" And I realized that he was right. I had not seen the little furry bastard since Randy was taken into solitary. Well, Randy told us that he had this dream. More of a vision, really. When he was just in his little cell. When the guards took him, it wasn't you guys doing extra tests on him. He was just locked up and watched. Through this device, this camera in the ceiling. He never saw anything like it, but there it was. Randy told us that he dreamed about the dock in the middle of the ocean, where that little gathering that I've always dreamed about was. It sounded a lot like the place where I was saved after the accident. And, the place I conjured up in my mind. The place I thought was made up. He told me there were plenty of men and women there, but none of them really had anything to say. There were a few animals, too, the little furry bastards mostly, like my Charlie. One of them came up, and he recognized it as, my pet, although I never really talked to Randy too much about him. Randy asked how Sammy and I were doing, back on Bainbridge Island, back away from his little containment. I guess that's the name of this little facility, huh, Doc? The creature assured him that we were doing well. And then Randy asked, how well did Charlie know us? He asked if he ever missed us and when he disappeared. Charlie, supposedly, giggled, as well as an animal could, and answered, "Oh, please. We all miss them here." Doctor, could Randy visit us one last time? I believe he's gone now for good. Sammy and I were staring out at the bay, occasionally talking about the ships, but overall pretty quiet. Randy comes up, without guards this time, and he's holding this folder stuffed with papers. He says, "Robert, look," and he hands me a photograph. It's this gorgeous young lady standing outside a house. I stare at it for a few moments, and I feel intense pain in my gut. It's my girl from home, Doctor. I couldn't even remember her name. No, I don't even remember she existed until right then, until right now. She's holding 2 little babies, and my mom's there too, holding a third. I remember 1, maybe 2 children, Doctor, even now that I'm desperately trying to. Why haven't we talked about my family? You're supposed to be helping me. Who's the 3rd child? And what's my wife's name, Murray? Why haven't you brought her up? I'm sitting here chatting up fucking Sammy, another loony like me, and you don't even say Sorry for flying off the handle with you the other day, Dr. Murray. You have to understand my confusion. Randy threw the folder at us before stripping nude and running at the guards on the patio. He was taken away, and that was the last time we've seen him. Sammy and I looked at the folder's contents, and it broke our hearts. We've been living entire lives beyond our memories here, Doctor. Our timelines before the incident at sea, they seem to have been continued without us. Why is that?
Patient Robert Kerrigan has been dismissed from the Oracle program. He was the last officially recorded ex-Marine, and the original Robert Kerrigan's kin has been informed of our completion of the project. With Kerrigan's dismissal, we conclude the Oracle program as a neutral expenditure. We have no further information on the incident which unfolded at the Pacific location known as the Vents. The original crew of the ship lost at the site, the Unyielding Endeavor, have completed their tenure on Bainbridge Island. A ship carrying 57 servicemen and women sank in the Pacific. We knew it as the Unyielding Endeavor. However, upon bringing the news to the residences of those lost at sea, we found that they were safe, at home, spending time with their families before their next time out. One morning a week or so later, dozens of small, single, and duly operated light vessels drifted into Slate Harbor under Deptford County Port Authority. These ships were crafted from the remains of the original Unyielding Endeavor, and their operators were carbon copies of the crew, every last one of the 57. Further medical examination found that they each lacked basic identification, namely their fingerprints. A document named the Harris Findings, 1947-DCVC, details the exaggerated dilation of their pupils and the apparent lightening of the skin. Robert Kerrigan, along with his friends such as the Sammy O'Hara and Randy Miller noted in his audio log, have been eliminated from our databases. Their bodies have been disposed of, and they no longer exist, along with the rest of the crew. Their original records of death are our only public displays of information on their status as of current. When the Unyielding Endeavor sank, and the waters around that area began to churn, something odd happened. A series of seafloor vents seemed to have opened simultaneously to the ship's sinking, and nearly everyone in the wreckage died in the incident. But these patients, the ex-Marines chronicled in this log, suddenly showed up one day on the shores of Bainbridge. They were not the same sailors on board. They were lacking fingerprints and severely deprived of any cognitive or personal information from the last decade of their lives. These were not the same patients lost in the incident. Whatever happened at the vents gave new life to those lost in the storm. Whether benevolent or something more sinister, we may never know. The surviving members of the Unyielding Endeavor, the original servicemen who were found in their homes when delivering the false death notices, have been given no indication of the incident at the vents, nor will this information be made public. Dr. Abigail Murray, September 17, 1948, signing off on the Oracle Program records, Bainbridge Island, Washington, USA, Zone 3.